Hello again, and welcome to another edition of Media Watch. I'm your co-host, Eric Tait.
I'm Raymond Peterson.
And our guest for this edition of Media Watch is filmmaker and former colleague of ours, Michael Jacobsohn. Mike, welcome to Media Watch.
Thank you very much.
And if we're lucky, there was some audio behind that film that
Yeah,
we just saw. If we're lucky, we'll find out
Hugo's
when we double check it.
Hugo Munoz, who's the artist, also performs the guitar.
Tell us a little bit about what we just saw, because that looks like a promo trailer teaser for your latest work.
Yeah, what you saw is an ink drawing by Hugo Munoz, and he took about 6-7 weeks to do it, and during that process I videotaped him and I created this montage, which has a bit of a memory. It's Hugo's possible memories of childhood, but then it's the present situation with the possible Trump wall, which he calls the wall of shame.
The infamous wall, and you're a muralist because this is basically the ink drawing is part of a mural that you will tell us some more about. But it speaks to Hugo's take on what this wall may mean to him, his fellow Mexicans, and to Americans, because a lot of Americans are not happy about this wall.
Right. This hypothetical wall, which I personally believe will come up, because I think, if anything, I don't think Trump is going to accomplish much, but he's going to somehow build some form of wall, and that will be his legacy. So it is part of our contemporary craziness.
No, I was just still thinking about him creating this wonderful, wonderful piece of art. And it's an ink drawing, yes, but for our artist friends out there, I'd like to point out that it was done with a 25-cent ballpoint pen.
So tell us a little bit more, Mike, because I know you've been working a major project. Full disclaimer, Mike Jacobsohn was one of my editors at 2020 at ABC News way back when. He did some phenomenal work with us, for me. I think, Ray, you may have been on that piece when we were doing the Jesse Jackson piece. So when the Reverend Jackson was going to actually do his first...
He was going to make his first public announcement. Yes.
Right. He toyed with it the previous election cycle, but in '86 he decided he was actually going to run. Mm-hmm. And so part of our assignment was to actually cover the Reverend Jackson. And of course we did, and we went pretty much all across whatever globe we trekked with him. And so there was an amazing amount of footage. And so Michael was tasked with putting that footage together to sell the concept to our executive producer and whatever.
Speak about wall of shame. It was a shameful task to have to convince ABC that Jesse Jackson deserved a moment of airtime.
The opening segment of the new season of 2020 in 1986. And yeah, it was a supposed big struggle, and whether the material was good enough. If I remember correctly, Mike, you can correct me if I'm wrong, we were told to put together a 20-minute clip reel
Right.
so we could show just
Right.
how great that material was.
Right.
And so I said, Mike, I want you to string together in chronological order from start to whenever we run out of our time slot, the way we traveled and what we had. And I said, string 30 minutes together.
Right.
And he said, what was your words to me?
Well, I just
he
remember.
said, they
I
want
don't
20.
know. Okay, short is better. But I just remembered how dismissive ABC was. I mean, the first reel we worked on, they were just completely, they laughed at it.
Now,
But it was about a year later that Jesse really started making.
The interesting thing was they asked us for 20 minutes. We strung 30. And I said, don't worry about the 30 minutes because the material is so good. They won't know they're in that edit room for 30 minutes. Right. And sure enough, they sat there mesmerized for 30 whole minutes. And then the question was, oh, wow, what do we do now? Okay. So, but here's the way they toss the ball back in our lap. If he will declare on 2020, we will go ahead and open up the segment where I said, you know what? I cannot promise you that. Right. He can declare wherever he wants to declare. That's up to him, and he may or he may not. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I'm going to promise you that. And sure enough, he decided he'd declare on 60 Minutes. No. So, but anyway, but that's how far back Mike goes with us. And we've known him ever since. And he's actually volunteered for our media center up in Mount Vernon. So we're happy to talk to him about his latest work. And you take the floor, Mike. What's this new project?
Well, the latest work, which I spent about a year filming and that recently completed, is called James, Hugo and Me. And it's during that year that I got to meet Hugo and get to know him. And at one point,
what's Hugo's full
Hugo Munoz.
M-U-N-O-Z?
Yeah.
Okay.
And what happened is during a year of filming, and the film is mostly about two homeless artists who are very passionate about their work, but have similarities and differences. And it's a film about friendships and the ups and downs. But like all film projects, it's always a challenge to come up with the ending. So it came to me that we should work possibly on a grand picture, some collaboration where they both work on it. And so in seeing some of Hugo's works.
Who's the other artist?
Right, the other artist is James Garland, who I had worked with on a previous documentary, who is born again Christian type, you know, more representative of the middle of America, you know, but a fine artist. But anyway, it came to my mind that we should have a grand ending, and with that, I suggested that they work collaboratively on a project, and so what came out is the passage. This is a 16-foot mural, and it's kind of a triptych because the left and right panels are Hugo's work, and the center panel is James's work. Now, James's work is actually an image that he saw in the New York Times, which had a photographer, a Russian photographer with the New York Times, had won a Pulitzer Prize. It was a Pulitzer Prize winning photo in 2016, and it was all about refugees arriving in Lesbos, Greece. So he used that as an inspiration for his work, and then Hugo did very much his surreal Mexican muralist style. And then collaboratively they put it together, which was a challenge. And so we have this 16-foot mural, which I want to at some point announce will be available for people to see.
Well, don't wait for it.
Right.
This is
if you're interested,
yeah.
if you're interested in seeing James's work and Hugo's work, there'll be an opportunity. There's an opportunity to see the 16-foot original mural. There's an opportunity to see the Wall of Shame, which is quite a large ink drawing. And I'm fortunate to say that the Lower Eastside Girls Club, which is located at 402 East 8th Street on the corner of Avenue D, will have a reception on May the 12th, 5 to 7:30. So anybody who's interested in seeing the work, meeting the artists, please come.
Lower East Side, Avenue D. That's
Avenue D.
almost your old stomping ground,
Oh
Raymond.
no! When I was growing up, you didn't go to Avenue D. You didn't go to Alphabet City at all.
Oh, you were on the other side of the
I was on
village.
the other side of the village. Well, there was no East Village back when I was. That was a real estate thing that was started in the '60s.
Oh, okay.
When they started to gentrify a little bit.
Oh, like all these different nomenclatures we're getting for
Right,
Harlem
exactly.
now. Soha and Doha.
Exactly.
And
Right.
Exactly.
which for us is still Harlem.
Exactly.
Valley Hill.
I mean, it's unfortunate that the neighborhood has gotten very gentrified, but if you want to, the spirit is still there within the Girls Club. This woman, Lynn Pentecost, has spent 25 years focusing on Lower East Side teenage girls to present science and the arts to them. So it's a real legit program. No gentrification there. So anyway, it's a good host. I feel fortunate that we're being hosted by them.
Fantastic.
Everybody come down.
So the true spirit of Alphabet City, true artistic spirit of the village is being perpetuated by these two muralists being hosted by the Lower East Side Girl Gallery. So what I want you to do is talk to us a little bit about your trek with these two muralists, because, I mean, we only have a half-hour show, but you can tell us a little bit about how you got involved with Hugo. I mean,
Right.
you say there are two homeless artists.
Right.
How did you stumble across?
What I have to say is, good or bad, I was fortunate to have a close to 30-year career at ABC News. That's how I met Eric. That's how I met Ray. But it was always a kind of love-hate thing. I mean, I was fortunate because I was making a good salary.
Yes.
But I was frustrated because I really didn't get a chance to express my inner strength.
We have all been there. We fully sympathize and understand.
But as a teenager, I was very fortunate because I went to, again, the Lower East Side. There was a place, it's still there, the Henry Street Settlement. And in the late 60s, they had a movie club. And if you showed up and put in the time, you'd learn the technique of 16mm film. So I did that for several years. I made several shorts.
And they were open to everybody.
They were open to everybody, including outsiders. I call myself an outsider because I lived in Queens. And here I was coming down. I would take the subway, and it was very friendly. The local teenagers accepted me. It was like my real teenage friends.
Yeah, that's your United Nations melting pot,
Right.
New York City melting pot right
Right.
there in the Henry Street Settlement.
Right.
Yeah,
But then I got involved with ABC, which was like a golden handcuff, and I unfortunately gave up on doing my personal art. Finally, after 30 years, I left, I retired, and lo and behold, I really went back to that original spirit of making personal films using inexpensive cameras, using affordable software to edit, and so I created my first documentary was called Imaginary Distance.
yeah, I remember that.
And in that I had met this artist, James Garland, who introduced himself as a homeless artist who did his art just for what he needed. That was his mantra. I just do my art for what I need. And it was he's quite gifted, you know, and most people really gravitate toward their
See by that.
art. But so I spent a year, we traveled all over America. We started in California. We met his family in Oklahoma. We spent several months in New York, and I put together this film. Then I was introduced to another reality that making a film is one thing, getting it out there is painfully difficult.
Distribution.
Right, distribution,
Bugaboo of all independent filmmakers
is painfully
comes back
difficult,
to haunt you.
and you just have to accept the rejections and move on. And a year or two later, I was able to again start a new film, but which actually features James. But at that point, James introduced me to Hugo. And so this new film called James, Hugo and Me is a film that captures the friendships, the ups and downs, the differences, the similarities, the breakup, and then the getting together to create the final mural. And it's tricky to get the message out. Just to show you how tricky this is and how fortunate I am to be here with Eric. As I told you, in this mural, this image over here is a rendition of a Pulitzer Prize winning photo that's in the New York Times. Now you would think the New York Times might be interested in this, but not so. I have not been able to penetrate the New York Times, because
Did you try reaching out to the photographer himself?
I have reached out to the photographer, and he was very generous. He liked it very much. He liked Hugo's contribution. But when I asked him more than once, could you give me some contacts in the New York Times? All of a sudden, silence.
Right.
I mean, like,
It's
I'm going,
like,
am I mad? But, this is persistence. I'm patient now. It's like fishing. You got to be, at some point, it'll be understood what I'm trying to do, what I'm trying to share. I'm fortunate to be here today. Two people who understand, who appreciate what I'm doing, appreciate what James and Hugo are doing, and that's it.
So let's get to another aspect of murals and the reasoning, say the driving force behind James's reinterpretation of the New York Times Pulitzer Prize winning for the plight of the Syrian refugees and the refugees across the globe spoke directly to him.
Right.
And so he said, this is today's global current topic.
Right.
I will do my piece and my part. Hugo, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think that's a very important point, the social impact of murals. Telling a story that is often overlooked from the human aspect. We all know about the refugees and the situation, but to see the work of some muralists, they actually put their heart into it. They show the suffering and the dream.
The plight of refugees. I mean, anytime war impacts people, there are always refugees, and I'm old enough. We're all old enough to remember the Vietnamese boat people when they were washing up on shores and people were turning them away. My mother and grandmother and other people, another generation, remember all those Jews who were refugees that this country turned away and other countries turned away. So this is a continually recurring problem, the plight of refugees. And the stories usually get not swept under the rug, but because they're so constant and so continuous, people start to get numb. So if an artist doesn't reinterpret it, or if a photographer doesn't capture, like the kid on the beach that just resonated across the globe, even this boat pilgrimage, which is symbolic of all these other boats crossing the Mediterranean, symbolic of those Vietnamese boats washing up in Hong Kong and wherever they were washing up in Cambodia, in Singapore, wherever. The plight of the other is basically what the story that usually resonates, that most people can relate to, but a lot of people just want to ignore. The wall for me, let's go to the wall.
I'm sorry.
The wall for me speaks to our current battle as a nation. What kind of nation are we going to be? And so Donald Trump got into office, folks, slamming immigrants, slamming the other, vilifying other folk, and he touched a raw nerve in a certain segment of the population that said, that's my guy. And so he played to that and he said, I'm going to build this wall. And every time he spoke to this wall, he'd say, and who's going to pay for it? Mexico. And sounded great on the campaign trail. What are we faced with now? We might have a government shutdown. We're pre-taping on Thursday, folks, so Friday they might shut the government down. But guess what? Mexico's not paying for the wall. Your president wanted to mandate funding for his wall. A measly $1 billion is the way somebody put it.
Right.
A measly $1 billion.
By taking money away from other social programs.
A measly $1 billion for the wall that will protect us. Well, there are a whole lot of people say our terrorists don't come from across the way; they're homegrown, and most of the terrorists and stuff that have been in this country have been homegrown. So, to find an artist here in the United States who says, I have to speak to this wall. And Hugo Munoz
Right.
decided he
You-
was going to speak.
which
Talk
is-
to me.
Hugo is not very political. I mean, I gave him a challenge. I said, would you be interested in doing something on the wall? And he said, look, I'm not political. I'm not a poster child for this issue. I said, well, just deal with your, your background, your insights to this topic. And that's what he did. And I think he became quite political because at the end I said, well, what should we call it? And he called it the Wall of Shame. You know,
All right.
so
Wall of Shame.
you know, and again, I was telling Eric and Ray, the Wall of Shame is related to other things: funding of Planned Parenthood, funding of the National Endowment on the Arts, funding of public media, and on and on and on. It's a shame that this country is withdrawing the minimal amount of support. It's just plain shame, and there's hundreds of topics that are shameful.
Oh, it's interesting because when the proposed Trump budget first came down the pike in March, I believe it was, once people got a hold of all these things that he was going to cut, as soon as he touched on PBS, NPR, NEH, NEA, the headlines, Big Bird goes bye-bye. I mean, Trump decimates the arts. Okay, people are concerned about the arts, and they are concerned about programming for little children that might be of import and might help them learn and grow. And so, but the corollary to why would he even, that's like 1/10% of the total budget, the money that they give to
I know,
NPR,
but
PBS,
CPB.
CPB. That doesn't even get the 1% of the budget.
But if you eliminate those programs, you're eliminating the public voice. It's a form of censorship.
Yeah,
Right.
okay.
Most
yeah,
definitely.
no, you're right
Right,
about that.
right.
That's for sure.
Right.
But I, for the life of me, if you total it up for dollars, and these Republican conservatives, they're always about fiscal conservancy and fiscal integrity.
Right.
Why
would they even think to purge CBB, NPR,
Because
PBS, and get 1/10%?
I think I just told you. I think I just told you the real reason.
Because I think those people believe that
That's the way
all-
it starts, Eric. I'm sorry. I know you don't want to believe that, but these people are a lot more dangerous than you're willing to recognize at the moment.
I'm not
And
going
it's
to say the Republicans aren't
this is the way a
censorship.
dictatorship starts. You
But-
silence the people first. Then you silence the media, and then you control all of the information that's going out.
We rolled Bob Reich's 4-5 steps to
Yeah,
the
we
video
did,
on
we
it.
did.
It's all about.
Well,
you
I
know,
would
we-
like
we-
to- I would
we
like
know
to
exactly.
remind people.
I know, but Mike, you were going to say.
Well, I misstepped
I'm
right
sorry.
now, but it's okay. Again, it's just a shame that the arts. I was going to say that out there in the middle country, a lot of the core base of Trump there is a real suspicion about California and New York, these blue states, these liberals who are controlling everything. And so the idea is to cut back the funding and you'll silence those people. And they to some extent support Trump on that issue. It's unfortunate.
I hear you. I think we're about
We've got
almost
about
out of
a
time.
minute.
About
We've
1
got a
minute.
minute.
So, Mike, the showing, the gallery showing. Tell us again exactly where it is.
The gallery showing will be on May the 12th, which is Friday, and the location is 402 East 8th Street. It's basically on the corner of 8th Street and Avenue D. You'll get a chance to see the Lower East Side. There'll be a reception, there'll be an introduction speech, there may be a short movie on the making of the passage. It'll just be a great time, and you'll meet the artists.
Fantastic. This has been Media Watch. I'm your co-host, Eric Tait.
And I'm Raymond Peterson.
And Mike Jacobsohn has
who's
been our guest.
who's thankful for a chance to share these men's work.
Well, I think we're about out of time. Thanks, M&N. Thanks, EBT Educational Productions. And we'll catch you the next time. Take us out.